Good morning, and welcome to the Morning Report. My name is Willie Lawson. I trust that you are well today. We are doing, yeah, we do this. We try to do this all the time. I know for those of you who've been with me for a while, like, oh my God, you're doing it again. Yes, I'm doing it again. He's doing it again. We are live on Podbean because right now I tried to look at Blog Talk Radio. If you guys know that was on Blog Talk Radio for a long, long time, and I don't know. It just seemed clunky. No offense. I mean, I got my start there, and a lot of people got their start there. People like Kevin Jackson got his start there. So there are others that did a lot of Blog Talk Radio to ramp up their careers in either I don't know, radio or TV or whatever they're doing now. But it just seemed to be it just seemed to be a little clunky. So I found Podbean. My other shows have been being uploaded to Podbean the entire time through RSS, and I explored it, and they have a live option, and we are live now on Podbean simultaneously. We are simulcasting, as they say. So you want to check out the archives? You can go to YouTube, or you can go to Podbean, or you can go to Spreaker, or you can go to Spotify. We're just trying to branch out. I mean, this needs to be a time of expansion and not contraction. So we are expanding, like my waistline. All right, let's get started with the fun today. We talked about last week that the Republican National Committee formally installed a new leadership team heading into the 2024 election. Michael Whatley, who was one of the lawyers or the head lawyer for the RNC, is now serving as chair, and Laura Trump, who is President Trump's daughter-in-law, is now serving as co-chair. Now, it continues, and Trump's senior campaign advisor, Chris LaCivita, is serving as chief operating officer. Trump has installed his crew at the RNC. To be honest, I don't know if that's the best thing. I don't know if that's the best thing. Because now it is not the Republican Party, it's the Trump Party. It just is. And I'm not, I don't know, I don't know if that's a good thing. We're going to find out for sure. So in an interview with Fox News host Maria, I hate this name, Bartiromo, there it is. Laura Trump outlined the three pillars they are focusing on to ensure victory this November. But they're only ensuring victory this November on the presidential scale, is my thought. The three pillars that they are focusing on to ensure victory are this: turning out the vote, protecting the vote, and fundraising. But amongst these pillars, she identified one as most crucial. This is what she said. I would argue that maybe the most important of these three is protecting the vote, election integrity, she said on Sunday morning Futures. Trump's comments were in reference to Attorney General Merrick Garland. I'm so glad he's on the Supreme Court. Stated position earlier this month that the Department of Justice would challenge states that are placing, quote, discriminatory, burdensome, and unnecessary restrictions on access to the ballot. Trump says, we have to ensure that when people go vote, they feel like their vote counts, that they are inspired to go vote. We can never allow what happened in 2020 and the questions surrounding that election to ever happen again, she added. Trump said the RNC created what they're calling an election integrity division, consisting of a network of volunteers. And we currently have 78 lawsuits out right now in 23 states across this country to make it easier to vote and harder to cheat. And here's what I want to say to anyone out there who's thinking about cheating in an election: we'll go after you. You will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. It's not worth it, she said. Every person in this country, whether you are a Republican or a Democrat, should want free, fair, and transparent elections. We think so, right? The problem is that they have been taught to hate your father-in-law to such a degree that some people will turn a blind eye and even encourage a little, something, right? As long as you don't have, as long as you don't get Trump. This is why this is kind of a problem. I don't necessarily disagree on either of those pillars, because you have to do all three. But you have to do all three, and it's got to affect everybody down ticket too. Because what we learned is that it is every bit as important, for House representative races and senatorial races and gubernatorial races. Every bit as important. Protecting all of those conservative candidates, at least down ticket, all the way down to county commissioners, city council members, mayors. No mention of that, because this RNC, this leadership RNC group, is set up to help Trump. The other side wants to get Trump. This RNC is set up to protect Trump. I don't know how you feel about that. Write it down in the comments, or if you happen to be listening on Podbean, write it in the chat room. But that's what this is all about. That's what it's all about. All right. A connected thing. With the 2024 presidential election coming up and millions of illegal aliens storming the southern border, Republicans are taking a stand from letting another 2020 election happen. However, Democrats are trying to squash the GOP's efforts in upholding election integrity. This week, Senate Democrats shot down proposed legislation that would exclude illegal immigrants from being counted on the census for purposes of apportionment for House seats and the Electoral College. Proposed by Senator Bill Hagerty, Republican from Tennessee, to add as an amendment to the $460 billion spending package. That's an issue all by itself, isn't it? The legislation would require that the Census Bureau to include a U.S. citizenship question to any future census. That would ban any illegal immigrants and non-U.S. citizens from being counted for congressional district and electoral college apportionment. Now, here's the deal. If the census taker comes to the house, the apartment, and there's 72 people living there, and decides not to check the ballot, not to check the box, or just lie on the box, really not much you can do about it, because they're hard to find, because they're normally, independent contractors. Well, maybe, who would then be guilty of a federal crime, but you'd never find out about it. It's kind of the idea of it, isn't it? However, 51 Democrats and independents, 51 Democrats and Bernie Sanders, and of course Lisa Murkowski, voted against it. Higgity says, today I forced Chuck Schumer to hold a vote on whether illegal aliens should be counted for determining the number of congressional seats and electoral votes each state gets. Democrats' unanimous opposition to this common sense measure confirm that they are using illegals and sanctuary cities to increase their political power. what I've been saying for years is this, that it's great because the left always tells you what they're doing. They always tell you who they're afraid of. They always tell you what they're doing. And it's the most frustrating thing for a lot of conservatives and Republicans because they told you, and then you didn't do anything about it. Then you backed off. Then you said see, and then you didn't do anything. Uh, Hagerty says, with this vote, Senate Democrats choose to trample on the rights of each American voice. I will continue to fight and press this issue in the Senate. This bill would be similar to a Trump era legislation that would have had a citizenship question on the 2020 census. However, Democrats were critical of Trump's plan. Check this out, claiming that the question of person's citizenship was wrong and intended to benefit Republicans in future elections. But not being a citizen would tend to benefit them. Interesting. Interesting. Because what did I just tell you? That those races down ticket, especially House of Representative races, are every bit as important. Every bit as important as the president. More so, really, for Senate and House of Representatives. Yep, that's true. So it seems to me that it is extremely important that these races, that these elections be fair and free and transparent, right? It is. It seems to me that would be extremely important, and you'd have to make sure that. There you go. Sorry, I'm manipulating Podbean. That you did all you could to make that happen, including making sure that you weren't counting people who aren't supposed to be in the country. You know, for the electoral college, so you would get more electoral college votes in order to choose president, right? That makes sense. Or even more House of Representatives in apportionment. House of Representatives. It does kind of remind me, although it isn't exactly the same as what happened to cause the three fifths compromise when the southern states wanted to count their slaves. And the compromise, this is why whatever you compromise, remember this, whatever you compromise to keep, you will someday lose. So the compromise was you can count 60% of them, 3/5, right? This idea was that, well, the Constitution says that black people are only 3/5 of a real person. That's not what happened. It's not what it means. What it means is they were only going to let you count 60% of them. Not that anybody was less than a person, but you weren't going to get to count all your slaves. Because your slaves, by your admission, were property, not people. Because had they been people, they wouldn't be slaves. This is not that hard. This is not that hard. But you know what? After you've been told something 1,000 times, um, and for one reason or another, you have not challenged it, um, then I guess it is hard for you. Then I guess it is hard for you, right? Post this. There we go. That's where we are. So it is incredibly important that you get out there and you do your best to volunteer. If you have time, please poll watch. work inside the polling places. They always have volunteers who work inside the polling places. I've been saying this for a number of years now. We need people who are on the other side of the glass. When they start putting up paper, cardboard boxes against the glass so the poll watchers can't see, we need people actually in the room, brave people in the room who will tell the truth, who will get information out, who will expose these folks. All right. The next story affects your hosts because those of you who have been following me for a while know that what I do is I am. There you go. I'm sorry. I'm manipulating two things at one time. I don't have a producer. It's just me. Um, I teach saxophone, flute, and clarinet for a living, and work in a music store. Like a lot of people who do this, they work out of a music store anyway. And we are independent contractors. We don't work for the store. So if you're a trumpet teacher and Sam Ash, big national brand, happens to have some studios that they let out to people to teach from, and the reason they do it, let me help you. The reason they do it is so let's say you have Billy who's playing trumpet, who's in the 7th grade, who wants to play trumpet. His parents rent a trumpet from Sam Ash. They get the book that they need for their lesson or band from Sam Ash. If the trumpet needs repair, they can do it at Sam Ash. And for that, the teacher gets charged a fee for renting the room, and they get the money. People do it in different ways. One of the systems, I'm explaining this to you because I may hit on some points that if you're an IC, this may pertain to you. Some people do it where the student pays the independent contractor, and then the independent contractor pays Sam Ash for letting the room, for leasing. Some people do it like that. Some people do it like, well, like where I am, the student actually pays the entity. The entity takes their cut and then provides the rest of it to me, which is a lot more convenient. But I pay for that service. It's a service that I pay for. It's a lot more convenient. It amounts to the same thing. I don't have to deal because when it's done that way, I don't have to deal with the money side of it. I just get paid. I don't have to deal with, I don't have to deal with scheduling. I don't have to deal with making sure people pay. I don't have to deal with any of that. I pay a larger percentage of the lesson money, and that gets handled for me. And I get a 1099, and it's good. I've been doing it for almost 40 years. But today, millions of Americans who freelance part-time or full-time or on an occasional basis are learning that our fate as independent contractors, under the Department of Labor's now finalized final rule. Now, these aren't laws. This is what we got to start getting. These aren't laws. These are just rules made up by bureaucrats. Employee or independent contracting classification under the Fair Labor Standards Act, effective today. The Biden administration will make it harder for the American workers to work independently or independently of a traditional employee-employer relationship under the Fair Labor Standards Act. Even Courthouse News reported this rule will forcibly convert sole proprietors into employees against their will. Because you're a business and you're the only person. You're a business. You're an entity. You go to work for XYZ company. They don't want that. The Independent Workers for Women's Forum Center for Economic Opportunity Director Patrice Owuka explains the new Biden rule, quote, utilizes a six-factor test to determine if a worker is an employee or an independent contractor, a more stringent standard than what is currently in place. The rule, she argues, will have a chilling effect on both independent contractors who engage in 1099 work and a small business who hires these independent workers. And added constraints expected to be placed on the latter to hire these workers as employees. Like my example doesn't really work when we talk about SAMAsh. SAMAsh is a huge company. But most of these, a lot of these teachers who teach music, who teach violin or piano or something out of a music store. A music store is a small business. Now, where I teach, there are probably, I don't know, 25, 30 teachers, maybe more. And it's a sweet deal for us. We don't have to teach out of our homes, which I would hate. Absolutely hate. I would abhor. The rooms are provided for us. If you need a piano shows up. If you need music stands show up. If you need a whiteboard shows up. Chairs show up. Lamps, whatever you need. The entity graciously provides it graciously at no additional cost. The AC is always on. So much, in fact, that those of you on Podbean can't see, but what I'm wearing now is often not enough. Often not enough. I got to put on a little jacket or something, a little sweater or something, because the AC is kicking where I work. Right. If I need to borrow a book, I can do so. As long as I return it. It is a sweet setup. It really is. And I'm concerned, frankly. I'm actually concerned. Because what I know is that the place I work is a small business and cannot take on hiring today 25 people for what we get paid, and then have to pay employee tax and have to pay all the things you have to pay when you have an employee. It's an expensive thing. This mirrors the California Assembly Bill 5, which instituted an unreasonable ABC test that reclassified most California independent contractors as employees. So since January 2020, the law has required workers to check off 3 prongs to keep their IC status. An individual providing labor or services for compensation is considered an employee and not an independent contractor unless the hiring entity demonstrates all 3 of the ABC tests are satisfied. This is a California law. An individual is free from the control and direction of hiring organizations in connection with performance of the work, both under the contract for the performance of work and in fact. Yeah. The store doesn't direct me on how to teach, on even what to teach. The individual performs work that is outside the usual course of the hiring entity's business. Well, the hiring entity's business is what? Selling kazoos, not teaching the saxophone. That works. The individual is routinely doing work in an independently established trade. I am. People have been teaching music forever. Occupation or business that is the same type as the work being performed. I'm doing the same thing I'd be doing that people did 100 years before me. So I'm guessing in California, I'd be good. So we have to wonder. So why the crackdown? Why is this happening? Well, I'll tell you why. You probably already figured out why. Union membership continues to decline year after year, with a paltry 10% of the workforce barely holding union jobs. No, it isn't because it wouldn't be because illegal aliens are coming in and taking those jobs. It wouldn't be that a lot of these union jobs are especially in factories are overseas, or some of these union jobs have been lost to automation. It would of course be all those reasons, but only about 10% of people, have people in the workforce have union gigs. So President Biden is beholden to big labor. We know that, a powerful Democrat constituency and funder, and they want to boost public sector unions by mandating membership as a condition of employment. Now think about that. In order to be able to feed your family, you have got to join this organization and then pay them money. Sounds like organized crime. Sounds like protection money, doesn't it? Doesn't it sound like protection money to you? Sounds like protection money to me. Definitely. So without saying this directly, proponents have used a workaround, arguing that there's a rampant worker misclassification in the economy and billions of revenue diverted by evil and greedy companies who hire and retain independent contractors. So what they're saying is, like, what happens is that these companies are hiring independent contractors and not paying them because they're trying to get out of paying them. They're trying to get out of paying taxes on them. Blah, 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 blah. Except that a lot of ICs, mostly ICs I know, don't want to be employees. That's why we chose to be ICs. In my particular case, I've worked for the music store that I'm teaching in. I didn't work teaching. I worked selling instruments. I worked picking up repairs. I worked in the repair shop. I worked in the office. I prefer teaching. I prefer being an independent contractor. I prefer deciding I'm not working on Tuesday. Tuesday will be my day off. Actually, it's Friday. Friday is my day off from it. And who chose it? I did. Do not open my schedule on Friday. I won't be there. And for a long time, I didn't teach on Saturday either until recently, where I wanted to, and they graciously opened up some spots and rearranged their whole nine there so I could teach on Saturday. I'm telling you, this stuff messes with people unnecessarily. This bothers me. You know, this is what separates us from them. This is one of the things that separates us from them. And I think we have to start realizing it. I hope that in Florida, our right to work law will supersede all of this stuff. Hopefully. As things go on, I will tell you how this works out for me in this particular situation. All right. One last thing. This is the second day of daylight savings time. Before I go on, I happen to like daylight savings time. I do. I don't like it being dark at 6:30 or 6 o'clock at night. I don't. I don't. I like my extra sunlight. One of my favorite times of this whole thing is that, and when I'm getting ready to leave work at 8:30, it's still light out. I like it, especially as you start turning those start turning the calendar months. Driving at night is a thing, right? Let me give you an example. Later on this month, my wife and I are driving to Naples, Florida. after she gets off work. Naples is probably, I don't know, probably 2 hours, maybe 3 hours from here, and south. Florida's a big state, by the way, and I'd love to drive down there after she gets off work and have most of that trip be uh, with sunlight, be in light, as opposed to driving down there in the dark. Why? Because I am a person of a certain age, and these eyeballs are eyeballs of a certain age, and it would certainly be less stressful for me to drive to somewhere I've never been in the daylight during the daytime. Don't you think? So I'm a fan of it. I am a fan. But right now, more than a dozen senators have reiterated their biannual call to end the practice of changing clocks for daylight savings time, as most Americans lost an hour of sleep on Sunday. We did not lose an hour of sleep on Sunday. You knew it was coming. So you know what you do? You go to bed an hour earlier. Elapsed time is a thing. Is it not? Elapsed time is a thing. Marco Rubio said this. Marco Rubio is my guy. We're springing forward, but it should have never fallen back. My Sunshine Protection Act would end this stupid practice of our changing clocks back and forth, Senator Marco Rubio said last week. GOP Senator James Lankford of Oklahoma, co-sponsor of the Sunshine Protection Act, said that he hopes the conversion can continue, the conversation can continue for the bill to actually pass Congress. While the measure passed with unanimous consent in the Senate in March of 2022, it went nowhere in the House. Why didn't it go anywhere in the House? Because the House was full of Democrats at the time. And anything Republicans put through, even something that did, especially if it didn't cost money, right? Didn't forward an agenda. They weren't here. So last year he reintroduced it as the Sunshine Protection Act of 2023. He said, my issue is lock the clock. Let's not have this back and forth on this. This has come up so many times with folks that are moms, that the little kids don't make the shift. Whether you're in agriculture, it's hard to be able to make that shift. Lankford said on Sunday on CNN's State of the Union, we want to be able to lock this clock. A lot of people are annoyed by it. It's a relic of World War I, actually, when we were trying to save lamp oil. Yeah. Now, I still think that if you're interested in saving energy, you would be for daylight savings time. Why? Because what happens? You don't have to turn on every light in the house as early. The street lights don't have to come on as early. You can use, I don't know, the sun. The sun, which is nice and bright right now outside. And today in Arizona, they're not waking up to a clock that's messed up. Langford added, referring to how the state follows standard time the entire year. Hawaii does as well. Daylight saving time became a practice in 1918 under the Standard Time Act and was briefly scrapped as a national standard at the end of World War II, but was revived near the start of World War II. Was scrapped as a standard at the end of World War II, but will be revived near the start of World War II. Actually, at the end of World War I, but was started again World War II. The idea is to ensure that there's more daylight in the evening. Benjamin Franklin is widely credited for having come up with this idea. Maybe they didn't. So again, a lot of us have ridiculously, I know I do, ridiculously strong opinions on this, outrageously strong opinions on this. I'd love for this time, daylight savings time, to be the time and have that extra hour and a half, even of sunlight. And we can all come up with ridiculous arguments why. One of them for me is driving. The other is there's a chance to get more what? Vitamin D. And what we found out is that vitamin D helps in the keeping away COVID, right? So if you're, for keeping away COVID, if you're for saving energy, then you should be in favor of daylight savings time. Okay, now that you're mad, I gotta get out of here. So until we see you again, go out there and learn something, love somebody, and for goodness sakes, y'all take care of yourself. We will see you when we see you. Bye bye now.